building confidence and credibility through transparency and professionalism. This is the Constabulary Communication Network, lifting our standards through communication.
Chairman, His Worship, the Mayor, Commissioner, and senior officers of the JCF, sub-officers, and important batch 100 of 197 JCF graduates, families, friends, supporters, good morning. As James Forbes mentioned as I was arriving, today is significant not only for the graduates, but for me, as this is my maiden passing out ceremony for the JCF. And I feel very privileged to be in this position and indeed very proud to see the fine batch of young men here in front of me this morning. And you know, Bishop Welsh likes to talk about parables. So I thought he would agree with me starting my presentation with a story. It's a story some persons may have heard before. It's quite popular in different versions. But it speaks to a man who came across a construction site and he saw three masons working. He asked the first one, "What are you doing?" And he answered, "Well, can't you see I'm laying blocks?" He went to the second mason and asked him the same question. This one said, "Well, I'm earning an income to provide for my family." He said, "Okay, that was better answer than the first one." So he went to the third one, who was working most diligently, lining up his blocks very carefully, even though they were still at relatively foundation level, very low. The man couldn't make out what type of building was going to be constructed there. And he asked the third mason, who was working so carefully and so diligently, "What is it you're doing?" The mason said, and paused, looked up in the air and said, "I am building a cathedral, a monument and a place of worship that will stand for centuries." What this story illustrates is you have three men, three different attitudes, all doing the same job. And it illustrates that purpose has the power to transform not only our attitude about the work that we do, but the quality of our work as well. And much of what I have to say to you this morning is around the purpose of the very important work that you embark on shortly after leaving the academy. Today is one of significant achievement that you, your family, and all those involved in training you can be justly proud. You are among the final batch. In fact, I learned this morning perhaps the penultimate batch that will graduate in this our 50th anniversary year, 50th anniversary of our independence. I challenge you to make your performance as a group, all the batches in this year, so distinguished that in future you'll be known collectively as the Jubilee Batch. In the early 90s, I was among a group of parliamentarians privileged to receive a presentation by Sir Philip Sherlock, a great Jamaican and a historian. And he made a very profound comment to us. We were members of the Joint Select Committee on Constitutional Reform. And he said the way that government related to the people, at that time it was just over 30 years since independence. And he said then that the way that government related to the people had not changed fundamentally since independence. He said, yes, we had replaced some white faces with some brown and black faces, but the attitude of government to the people had not changed fundamentally. In fact, he commented that in some instances, some areas had operated with more compassion. And this wasn't just coming from a cynical commentator. This was coming from a man who was the author of many works, but one in particular called The Story of the Jamaican People, which really was about the pride and proud history of struggle that black people had undergone from the time of the Middle Passage coming through to modern Jamaica. So this was no superficial or cynical commentator. And at the time, I was very much affected by his comments. I felt it perhaps was an indictment of all of us who were involved in politics and government. Today, looking back, I believe that the JCF perhaps was one of those structures that Sir Philip referred to. Remember, this was the time we were still under the Suppression of Crimes Act. And as a historian, he would undoubtedly have known that the JCF was formed in 1867 as a response to the Morant Bay Rebellion. And at that time, it would have been more concerned with protecting the rights of the privileged than with the average citizen. So now, standing here in the year of our 50th Jubilee of Independence, in a sense, the Jubilee mission of the police must be to fundamentally transform the nature of its relationship with the citizenry. Every interaction must be grounded on a foundation of respect and recognition of the dignity of the individual and an awareness of their individual rights and freedoms. Sometimes the way I like to put it is to say, imagine that every member of the public that you're dealing with is your grandmother, and the same care and concern that you would take in addressing her and respect in addressing her, you should show to every member of the public. And be very, I don't want you to think that I am naive to the policing environment. I understand the risks, the dangers, but nevertheless, we must approach the task in the way I've described because it is right, it is the correct thing to do, but also because it is the only way to build a real partnership with our communities. And in turn, that is the only way, that is the only basis for sustained success in policing. So you will have heard recently myself or the commissioner or other members of the High Command start to speak in terms like we're shifting the emphasis from national security to citizen security, from not so much a police force as a police service. This is an impulse, a trend that perhaps was started years ago, but we need to accelerate it because we're not talking about just reform. We're talking about transformation. So our mission, our purpose is to fundamentally transform the way the police relate to our citizens while preventing crime and making Jamaica the place of choice to live, work, and raise families. For sure, that is the responsibility of the minister as the policy leader, of the commissioner as the operational leader, and of all the members of the High Command, all the officers and sub-officers. But equally important, it is your responsibility, Batch 100, because you will be determining the culture of the police service on the ground, out there in communities, long after the commissioner and I have retired and gone on to other things, hopefully to enjoy our retirement in comfort, Commissioner. So this is really why this morning I chose to speak to you about the purpose. Your purpose is a very important one, not to be viewed narrowly in terms of crime prevention, crime detection, and occasionally crime fighting, but you have a bigger mission to transform the relationship of the state with the citizens, as you are one of the principal organizations representing the state in every community across Jamaica, and to ensure that we succeed in our audacious goal of reducing the crime rate to first world levels within 5 years, and that you do it in a way that builds respect and trust and partnership between the police and communities. And indeed, when we look back a few years' time, we will say Batch 100 made a profound contribution to making Jamaica the place to live, work, raise families, and do business. Congratulations again. Thank you very much.
There is nothing impossible about this mission. sure by now each relative would have lost their loved one in the face of the movement.
I can tell you it's going to be hard to determine which one of these young men belong to who. I want you to take keen note of how precisely the leaves rise and fall. Look at the unison with which they perform, ladies and gentlemen.
They're marching to the tune of Mission Impossible.
I'm sure this must be a very proud moment for their instructors as also for themselves.
The moment they'll form the number 100, symbolizing it's the 100 batch.
That means since 1981 to 2012, 100 batches have passed through the grounds of the Jamaica Police Academy. Here in the small parish of St. Catherine, I was about to say Cool, but this is very warm, ladies and gentlemen. Get ready for 100. Take keynote, ladies and gentlemen. 100.
It's hard to imagine getting the numbers 100 from what now appears to be total confusion.
Well, it takes close observation for you to recognize that there is 197 men operating all in unison to form the number 100. Now, there you have it. It's clear and you can see it. Ladies and gentlemen, batch 100.
They will make it even clearer in a few minutes. Batch 100.